My name is Gregory. It happened last December. I was home alone for a whole week. My girlfriend was with her parents. I stayed for work. Live in a quiet, upstate New York town, houses spaced out, everyone left for Christmas, had the whole street to myself. At first, I was all about that peace and quiet. Thought I'd chill, watch shows, enjoy the coziness. But what happened that week still lives in my head rent-free.
It was on my second night alone. It was around 6:30 and it was already completely dark outside. It had been snowing lightly all day and there was a white layer covering my yard and driveway. I was in the kitchen making a simple dinner, just pasta and chicken. Usually my girlfriend is the one who cooks. I'm not much of a chef. I turned on the TV in the background to make the house feel less empty, because as much as I enjoyed having the place to myself, I wasn't used to how quiet it felt.
While I was eating at the table, I heard something unusual. It took me a second to figure out what it was. It sounded like singing. I muted the TV and listened. The sound was definitely coming from outside. As it got clearer, I realized the person was singing Jingle Bells. At first, I thought maybe some neighborhood kids were messing around, but the voice didn't sound like a kid. It sounded like a grown man. I got up and walked toward the front door. The closer I got, the louder the singing became. By the time I reached the door, it sounded like the singing was coming from right outside, on my front stoop. I felt a strange feeling in my stomach, but I still thought maybe it was just a caroller. So I opened the door. Standing in the glow of my porch light, this time though, he was making direct eye contact. I felt my smile drop instantly. I stood there for another minute, pretending to listen, even though it felt incredibly uncomfortable. I kept thinking he would stop after the second run, but he didn't. He just kept looping the song. I checked my phone and realized that almost 4 minutes had passed while he sang Jingle Bells over and over again. Finally, I decided it was enough. Thanked him in a polite tone and slowly closed the door. I figured that would be the hint he needed, but once the door shut, I could still hear the singing. It didn't slow down, it didn't fade away. He was still right there. I walked back to the table and sat down, trying to ignore it. But the longer it went on, the harder it became. The man didn't seem normal, and it bothered me that he was still standing right outside my door. I wondered if maybe he really was special needs and someone was watching him from down the street. But when I looked outside, I didn't see anyone else. It made the whole house feel uncomfortable, like someone was standing way too close to my personal space. The singing went on for my entire dinner. Then suddenly, after about 10 straight minutes, it stopped. The silence actually made me jump. I'd gotten used to the sound. I slowly walked back to the front door window. I expected to see him gone, but he wasn't. He had moved. Now he was standing at the end of my driveway, just facing my house, completely still. He wasn't singing anymore. He was just standing there, waiting. I cracked the door open and told him he couldn't be there. I told him this was private property and that he needed to leave. He didn't move, not even an inch. I told him if he didn't leave, I would call the police. Then I shut the door.
I watched him for another minute from the window. He still didn't move. I didn't want to actually call the cops. I thought maybe there was something mentally wrong with him. So instead, I went upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and tried to relax. When I checked the window upstairs, He was gone. About 20 minutes later, I heard singing again. I knew immediately what it was. This time, it was coming from my backyard. I ran to the back window. He was standing directly beneath my bedroom window, looking straight up at me, singing. I slid the window open and screamed that I was calling the police. The singing stopped instantly. He stood there silently for 3 seconds. Then he sprinted toward the back door, and then he started screaming. Not a normal scream, something feral, something inhuman. He slammed into the back door, kicked it, tried ripping the handle off. The entire house shook. I grabbed my phone and called 911. I hid in my closet with a baseball bat. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. Wassel aside, the police arrived and searched the area. The back door was still locked. Outside, we saw his footprints in the snow. They led straight into the woods. The cops didn't seem too concerned. They told me people act strange all the time. After they left, the house felt empty and cold. I locked every door and window. I went to my parents' place for Christmas. As for that man, he never came back. At least, not that I know of.
This story is about my Christmas experience from about 10 years ago. I was 6 years old at the time, since my birthday was in November, and I had just finished celebrating it. We were getting ready for the holidays. My birthday happened on the same day as the famous Odell Beckham catch. I lived with Cowboys fans, but I was a Giants fan. I remember everyone talking about that catch for the rest of the night, even during my birthday celebration. I didn't really understand football, but I understood that the catch was crazy. I was just happy. It was my birthday. For my birthday, I got tickets to a Mavericks versus Wizards NBA game on December 30th. I was a Cavaliers fan, but since we lived near Dallas, I liked the Mavs too. It was going to be my first NBA game. Christmas Day came 5 days before, and I got a brand new Odell Beckham jersey, a Mavs shirt, and a sweatshirt. One of my Christmas gifts was another Mavs game on December 27th against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was so excited. We went to the game, and the Mavs won something like 112 to 105. It was crazy seeing an NBA arena for the first time. A couple of days later, we went again. This time, the seats weren't as good. We were further back, maybe row 20, in the corner. The game was going well. The Mavs were up by 20 or 30 points at halftime. Since I was a kid, I wanted to roam around. My parents walked with me to get food. We waited in line for about 20 minutes. My dad went to another restaurant to get different food. I stayed with my brother at the counter. I walked away to throw some candy in the trash can, maybe 30 feet away. As I got there, a tall white man walked up to me. He asked, "Hey, are you lost?" I shook my head. He said he didn't see my parents and told me, "Let's go look." He grabbed my hand, and I walked with him. He walked me toward the nosebleed seats. He said we were going to the intercom. We waited for about 10 minutes. Then he tried pushing me toward the emergency stairs. There was no one around. That's when I remembered stranger danger. When he let go of my hand to check his phone, I ran. I ran all the way back to the stands. As I ran, I saw him standing there, smiling. I found my brother. He asked if I was okay. I said yes. I didn't tell anyone. I just wanted to go home. On the way home, I heard a loud honk. I turned around. It was him. He was in a truck with other men. My parents yelled at them. They just stared. That night, I woke up freezing. There was a flashing light outside my window. It was him shining a flashlight into my bedroom. I screamed, "Dix." On New Year's Eve, the doorbell rang. It was him again. My parents didn't believe me. They said he was handing out lost dog flyers. A year later, someone knocked on my bedroom window. There was a note. It said, "This new year, you'll meet me again." I'm 16 now, and every New Year's Eve, I still wait for him. I remember this night way too clearly. Even now, I think about how close my family came to something really terrible. It was early December, and we decided to drive up north into the mountains to cut down a real Christmas tree. It was something my wife, Mary Ann, and I had always wanted to do. Our 7-year-old son, Andrew, was excited too. The weather was cold and cloudy. The sky had that heavy look, like snow was always about to fall again. To us, it added to the Christmas feeling. The winding roads made me feel like a kid again. It had been a long time since we'd done something like this. Andrew's excitement made it even better. When we finally reached the remote area Mary Ann had found online, pause. There were no other cars, no people, just a small parking area with a few light posts. That's why we chose the place. We weren't in complete darkness, at least not yet. We parked near an unmarked path leading into the trees. There was still a lot of snow on the ground from earlier that week. Andrew jumped out of the truck immediately, throwing snowballs at us. I threw some back. We laughed. I grabbed the flashlights and the axe. As we walked deeper into the trees, the road behind us disappeared. Soon, the only light came from our flashlights. I actually asked them to stop for a moment, just to listen. There wasn't a single sound. No birds, no wind, nothing. If I'd been there alone, I would have been creeped out. Andrew started getting nervous. He asked how much farther we were going. I told him not much, but I kept feeling like we were being watched. Every time I turned around, there was nothing, just snow. Then I heard it. Crunching, slow footsteps in the snow, not ours. I turned around and I saw him. A man standing about 20 feet back on the path. He wasn't dressed for the cold. His hands were bare, red from the freezing air. His jacket looked thin, too thin. His face was pale. Oof! like he'd been out there far too long. Marianne grabbed Andrew's arm. When the man noticed us looking at him, he smiled and stepped closer. He asked if we were looking for a Christmas tree. His voice broke the silence, deep, soft, uncomfortable. Before I could answer, Andrew said yes. I felt panic hit my chest. Marianne quickly said no. The man stepped closer again. Every hair on my arm stood up. We decided to leave. As we walked past him, he just stood there, smiling, nodding. Andrew kept asking if he was following us. I told him not to look back, but every time I did, he was closer. When we reached the parking lot, Marianne screamed. Both right side tires were slashed. He had stranded us. Then Marianne pointed. Figures, more than one, standing at the tree line, watching, waiting. When the sirens finally came, the figures ran into the woods like they knew exactly where to go. The police never found them, just footprints, leading deeper and deeper into the trees. We never went back, and what scares me the most is knowing they were watching us long before we ever noticed them. I still think about this night from when I was 9 years old. It was a few days before Christmas. My parents both had things to do that night. My mom had to go to the grocery store. My dad was working late, like he always did in December. Since I was almost 9, they felt okay leaving me home alone for a little while. I was sitting on the couch watching a Christmas movie. I was eating cookies by the fireplace and the Christmas tree. Outside, it was already dark, even though it was still early. I could see Christmas lights flashing on the houses across the street. Everything felt normal. Then the doorbell rang. That alone made me freeze. It was late and random. My mom always told me never to answer the door when I was alone. My parents never rang the doorbell. They had keys. I still walked over to the door. I wanted to look through the peephole. When I put my eye up to it, I saw a man standing on the porch. He was wearing a Santa Claus suit. It was the full outfit, the red coat, the hat, the beard. But he didn't look like a normal, friendly Santa. He wasn't holding presents, just a clipboard. And he was standing way too close to the door. I whispered, "Who is it?" The man leaned closer to the door, like he was trying to hear me. That's when I knew. He realized I was a kid. He did his best Santa voice. He said he was Santa. He said he had gifts for me and that I should open the door. I didn't believe in Santa anymore. I told him to go away. I told him I didn't need anything. My voice cracked. The man went quiet. Then he asked me if I was home alone. I didn't answer. I walked away from the door. I sat back on the couch pretending to watch TV. Then I heard it. The doorknob twisting. He was checking if it was locked. A second later, I heard another sound from the back of the house. He ran around, testing the back door. That door was weaker. I ran to the kitchen. I grabbed the phone. I called my mom. I talked fast. I told her a man dressed as Santa was trying to get in. She told me she was coming home right now. I sat on the floor behind the couch. where no one could see me. I stayed completely still. I heard footsteps, light taps. He was still there. Then I heard a car. I recognized the brakes. My mom. She unlocked the door and ran inside. She hugged me. She told me she'd seen a man in a Santa suit walking down the street. The man told her he was asking for donations. She didn't believe him. She called the police. Some neighbors said he knocked on their doors too. But that didn't change anything. He knew a little boy was home alone. I still think about that night every Christmas. When I see Santa decorations, I remember knowing that man on my porch was not Santa. And I still wonder what would have happened if that door wasn't locked.